All right, just going to recap my trades for this week. This week felt like I didn't really learn much, or at least I didn't consolidate much learning. I just kind of executed, but I wasn't recording game plans. I wasn't recording recaps. I wasn't recording sessions. So I almost fear that in the long run, it'll actually um, be a week that works to my demise. So that's kind of what I want to change by recording this recap and going over the trades extensively. The actual statistical results of a singular week really don't mean anything. Um, you could have a strong learning week where you take a couple of losses, maybe you end the week negatively. But because of that, maybe you lock in and you improve a little bit more, right? The learning curve kind of sharpens a little bit temporarily for that week, and the result is that you actually end up in a more favorable position a few weeks down the line, as opposed to a situation where maybe you have a strong executional week and sure the temporary results from that week look good, but maybe you fuck off a little bit, maybe you don't learn much from that week. Your learning curve maybe takes a little bit of a dip, right? If you're used to doing like X amount of review in here and then you have a really good week in here and you don't do that, you're probably going to lose a little bit of the intuitive edge that was maintained by this amount of work. So in that sense, you could actually lose out in the long run because of a strong executional week. So yeah, that's what I want to kind of prevent. All right, so most of these entries had really consistent low time frame behavior, which was something I was looking to hone in on last week. So I'm happy about that. Started the week off with a sell on Sunday. I kind of recapped this in the Discord, but overextended relative to our middle time frames trajectory, or just kind of how we've been moving, right? Middle time frames kind of moving like this, gets this huge push up. Now in this scenario, I'm always looking for some sort of additional external confirmation to increase the probability of a reaction occurring. It's obviously nice we're extended relative to the middle time frame structure, but where all time frames were aligning bullish here, right? High time frame bullish, middle time frame bullish, etc. You had to look pretty far to find some sort of external to justify this. And yeah, if we go on the daily here, we actually just extended beyond this higher time frame high. And something I didn't even notice until after taking the trade is it was a reaction that was almost perfectly off of a weekly level. So yeah, when you have that higher time frame high that was just taken, the weekly level plus the overextension relative to the middle time frame, plenty of room to move low time frame wise. It's just a matter of waiting for the proper low time frame behavior and taking an entry. So yeah, that's what happened here. Typically when I'm trading against the middle time frame, and especially against just directional price action in general, right? All time frames are aligning bullish here. I'm always waiting for a response to the initial abnormality relative to the low time frame trend. So here, obviously, low time frame wise, we're overextending. We get this abnormality at 10 o'clock, right? This little break, but I'm always waiting for a response to that, given I'm trading against overall direction. So waited for the 5-minute candle to open. It manipulated to the upside, took this high, and then we got a really nice tick reaction off there. Obviously, there was already a tick shift within here. We then retraced that, got another reaction, and that's what I entered off of. That's what it looked like. So we had the initial break there, just kind of waited through this ranginess, and then the 5-minute candle opened, drove bullish, and then I was just basically watching the size of the bearish reaction, and this tick candle was very large compared to the bullish candles that got us up. So I entered as soon as we saw that. Obviously really favorable RR, just kind of put the stop a little bit above these highs, gave it a little bit of breathing room. I'm never putting stop losses right on right on the low time frame extremities. I've seen a lot of people do that. I really don't know why. What you're saving yourself like a couple of pips, and like there's honestly a good chance that um, you know the low time frame high or the low time frame low is just going to be retested, and because of spread, you're just going to get stopped out. So I don't know. I don't really care about sacrificing a little bit of RR to leave the breathing room, but yeah, that was trade number 1. All right, trade number 2. This was Monday, New York session. I think that's wrong, actually. It was 105. Very, very similar low time frame behavior to this one, actually. So yeah, this was kind of just this was the New York classic where I'm just kind of waiting for price to rangely retrace any sort of larger move that happened earlier in New York. So yeah, high middle time frame was relatively range bound at this point. I still considered the high time frame bullish, right? It's not like we broke in these lows or anything like that. Middle time frame had been bearish through here, but we assumed a low middle time frame range at the bottom of this high middle time frame range, and lower time frame wise, we also had this low time frame imbalance here to trade into. So yeah, we were right at lows. 1 p.m. opened, saw a really, really nice reaction off the jump, and then we were just kind of ranging, very similar to the trade from the previous night. I waited for that 5-minute candle to open, wick down, it sweeps the extremity, and then we got a really nice disproportionate response. Just a quick scalp. I wasn't going to trade through this low time frame structure here, but yeah, just kind of stacking the overall relativity with the fact that we had room to move low time frame wise. Let's look at the entry. So yeah, that was the initial influx off of that 1 p.m. candle opening, kind of ranged out for a bit, and then 5-minute candle opened, drove bearish, and then once again disproportionate reaction. Entered right after that. So yeah, very, very similar, right? If you were to invert this and compare it to this, super similar. This was definitely one where I saw it kind of before I made the full analysis, and just really this was the basic justification at the time of the entry. And then afterwards, I kind of broke down what I liked about it. But yeah, it was really just good relativity, really, really nice disproportionate volume, and room to move on the low time frame. As for the next Asia session, no trades taken. This was a news day, and I wasn't even on for it, which ended up working nice. So yeah, nothing there. Really just got this massive impulse though, and then kind of just ranged out. Oh yeah, this I documented a miss in here. I think a buy in here would have been really nice. Yeah, there is the write up for it. Yeah, I think it was. I think it was definitely smart to avoid entering off of the initial reaction, like I often do. It was smart to avoid entering off of something in here because there just simply wasn't enough to go off of. And yeah, when there's not enough to go off of, you simply wait for some structure to generate, and it's really that simple. But once some low time frame structure began printing and there was enough to go off of, I probably could have entered. Very, very similar entry to like any sort of New York trade that I take. This was, just about to circle it again. This was overextended relative to the middle time frame, right? Middle time frame, if anything, actually shifted to the upside, and then relative to this movement, we overextend, and we overextend into a super, super nice area relative to the external higher time frame uptrend. Boom. Was also a super nice 4-hour level here. So yeah, I mean, it's hindsighty, but this would have been an exceptional entry. high time frame was technically trending bearish at this point, but yeah, overextended into this overall bullish trend. Had room to move low time frame wise, of course, and yeah, it would have been pretty nice. As for the next Asia session, no trades taken. I went over this in the Discord as well, but I was close to taking an entry somewhere in here, but the reaction just wasn't good enough. And another thing to note is that we weren't really overextended relative to our middle time frame, right? That's just kind of how we're moving. You know, we are kind of overextended relative to this low middle time frame structure here into a 4-hour level. So that's why I was willing to take a scalp into that imbalance. But ideally, when I'm trading against the middle time frame, it's overextended into external structure. Eventually, we did push up to the daily level, but that was way later. Next up, we had this buy on Wednesday in Asia session. Oh yeah, I guess I kind of recapped that before. It was right here. I liked this one. Middle time frame effectively shifted bullish in here, right? It was range bound, kind of shifted bullish before the session opened. We also broke this high middle time frame downtrend here, and we're within what's pretty much a just high time frame range, right? So we touch up at the bottom of this range, assume a middle time frame range ourselves. So in other words, we're no longer actively pushing bearish, right? This has been retested. Assume a middle time frame range, break out of that range, which also broke this high, and then I need to get rid of some of this. And then we open for the hour. We do push up a little bit, which I'm honestly not a huge fan of, but pretty much just immediately drive bearish. The bearish push was really strong here, so I was looking to be patient. Ended up getting a nice tick reaction in here, but we were a little bit lower volume, working on about a 1.5 scale. So I definitely wanted to wait for a retest, very similar to the previous trades. Waited for that 5-minute candle to open, wick down, saw a disproportionate reaction, entered off there, and was just looking to trade into this low time frame move here. Yeah, I love low time frame misalignment setups into middle time frame continuations with room to move. It's just a super replicable setup. So yeah, low time frame pushing bullish here. We shift to the downside, but we shift down into a natural area within kind of how this middle time frame's curving near these lows. So good middle time frame relativity. Obviously, really good low time frame relativity, given we've broken against it. And yeah, it didn't end up really going the distance here, but the most natural movement would probably be for this to kind of continue retracing, given we broke this high middle time frame high and we're kind of in a high time frame range. Most recent touch was at the bottom. So yeah, I saw this move down as a little bit unnatural. Didn't take anything in here, but yeah, I like this entry. Now, as for what that was looking like on the tick chart, like what I actually entered off of, we began getting a nice reaction in here, but as I said, I was waiting for that response given the bearish push was so strong and given we were lower volume. So waited for that response. It wasn't too favorable. 5-minute candle opened, immediately drove bearish, and then we got a really nice response. So yeah, and given like where we were within the middle time frame, was willing to enter off of that. So yes, super similar 5-minute candle behavior as the last couple of entries. So what I was going off of here was a component shift off the bottom of the high time frame range, and that's kind of weird wording. What I mean by component is it's kind of just what I call the time frame that's between the high time frame and the high middle time frame, which once again, like you don't have to use that. This is just my own perception. Like I wouldn't recommend anyone assume that vocabulary. But yeah, I saw the high time frame is range bound at this point. We were within this downtrend here and then ended up breaking this high. And then after that, sort of just assumed a high middle time frame bearish trending range. Middle time frame, I just considered it range bound, And what I was looking for was an overextension out of this middle time frame range into a natural area of adherence with the component shift, the larger external type 3, because that's kind of our most immediate external structure, right? If you zoom out, we're obviously higher time frame range bound, but zoom in, we have this type 3 shift, as I said, and we're kind of just working our way back down within it. Now, something to note here is that this bullish trend is still actively bullish here, right? Structurally, it hasn't broken whatsoever. We have a new high here, new low, new high, new low, new high up here, and then all of this is internal, right? There's no new low being created, there's no new high being created. This entire structure is within this overall bullish move. So yeah, it's a long duration of price, it's lower volume, but it's all just internal structure. So yeah, I was just looking to trade with room to move relative to this trend, relative to the low time frame, but leveraging the fact that we reacted really nicely to 50% of this external bullish trend. That in itself is a technical shift to the upside, right? Even though it's really close, technically it is a shift. So that's what I was looking at. So yeah, when you align all the structure, this is a super strong entry, especially with the fact that we have room to move within this low time frame downtrend. And yeah, let's see what we entered off of here. So yeah, once again, waiting for that response, given we were lower volume. Could I have waited longer? It's something to look into for sure. We did get edged a little bit here. It's just that I know more often than not when we get a reaction like this, we're probably going to continue. It's just a question of, can you pick out the times that we're going to range beforehand and be more patient in those occasions? Could I have picked this out? Maybe. I mean, it's definitely lower volume. We're working with like a 1.25 scale, I would say. And yeah, I don't know. I'm still happy with the entry, but it's something to look into for sure. We got this really, really nice rejection off of that bearish overextension, waited for the pullback, and then once we got another just clear disproportionate reaction, I entered. And yeah, ended up working out pretty nicely. Something else to note is that it was at a very, very natural area relative to that high middle time frame downtrend we were in, right? If you were to measure this high to this low and then kind of these highs to this low, it's very proportional. So that's another thing I was looking at. So yeah, those were the entries for the week. I do feel better now about the learning now that I've gone over them. Yeah, as for DXY, I actually didn't really look at it this week. It was super low volume, and when that's the case, it's kind of just background noise relative to how gold itself in isolation is moving. So I didn't really care about it. It was in quite unfavorable positions for probably 3 out of 4 of these entries. It was brutal, but I just kind of disregarded it. Anyway, yeah, decent week. Hopefully I'll consolidate some of this learning, and yeah.